Welcome to another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. I'm Steve Gamache, and what we have this time is a very interesting knife. This is the Ishikawa white or Shirogami number 2 Santoku. And what really makes this knife unique is this blacksmith. There's a great story about him and his situation and just his history and the company's history on the Chef Knives to Go product page, which might be where you're viewing this video from, hopefully. Anyway, this knife is a single bevel style, so it is a right hand only knife. You can see this main primary bevel right here. They're coming from the blade face on the right hand side, and then the left hand side is basically flat. It's got a very slight concave, not as much as a traditional deba or yanagiba, but a little bit nonetheless. So basically flat on the left side and primary bevel on the right side. So let's talk a little bit about the knife itself, then we'll get into some of the features. The core steel, as mentioned, is Shirogami or white paper number 2 Hitachi reactive high carbon steel. And the heat treat, he does it by eye. Mark says it's probably in the 61, maybe 62 range, but a lot of these old school type blacksmiths just do it by eye, and that's approximately where you're going to get. The construction has basically 2 layers. It's got an iron cladding over the top of this core steel, and then that does cover the spine onto the backside a little bit as well. But it's an all-reactive blade. These do seem to have a thin lacquer coating out of the box. I did use this a little bit, although I'm a lefty and I was not very successful at testing it too well because it's hard to test it when you're a lefty anyway. But I didn't get any kind of reactivity on the stuff that I didn't have sharpened. So anyway, this, you could take that lacquer off or just use it and let it wear off over time. The weight on the knife, these are going to vary a little bit from knife to knife because they're handmade all the way. This one is about 153 grams or 5.4 ounces, and the edge length on this one, again, these will vary. This one's about 186 millimeters on the edge, or about 7.3 inches, and the overall length about 13 with the Chef Knives to Go handle. The spine thickness on these, they're fairly thick coming out of the handle, and then they thin down pretty quickly. There's still a pretty stiff blade, although there's a little bit of flex up towards the front, but not much at all. But again, and these will vary a little bit. This one's about 3.7 millimeters, but then it just thins right down pretty quick off of that. And you don't have really much of a distal taper per se, except when you get around to the tip, you've got the grind, the chisel grind, where it thins out right at the very, very tip. The blade height is 47.5 back at the heel, or back of the heel, known as the chin. And the handle's really sweet on these. These are some Isaiah Schrader handles. One of the guys that Chef Knives to Go uses. Really nice job on this. It's a dyed maple handle, and you might be seeing some different combinations on these knives. Really smooth fit and finish. Actually, I think it looks pretty good with the characters of the knife. Really great handle install. Nice and clean. Just a super job on this handle. It's just really, really nice in hand. The let's see here. Getting with that, the handle circumference about 72 millimeters right here at the ferrule, main part of the handle junction, and which it fits the knife, I think, really well in terms of just rough size. And the cool thing about these knives is they've got a slight rustic bent to them, but they're refined at the same time. So he did a great job of hand finishing the sanding in a couple different directions. And this sanding job, the marks on it, some people call this a hairline finish, but it's basically horizontal sanding marks instead of vertical. And what that is really nice is when you dry the knife and wipe it down, since you're doing it this way, those scratches will blend in better to the finish. So it's really nice for hiding that. You've got an embossed kanji maker's mark on the right side of the blade, and you can see a little bit of that residual on the right side of the blade in terms of how it's stamped in. Now this one, a little bit of a story here. These might be finished sharpened out of the box. Mark is still determining that, so this could change, but here's the original maker's grind marks on the primary bevel, and bringing this straight out of the box and rocking it on a sample cutting board and then checking the edge. It had a big burr on the edge, and I don't think the blacksmith intended the job to be a finished sharpening job because it was just slightly, ever so slightly bumpy on the edge profile curve. So I went ahead and smoothed that out on a stone, and then I didn't really want to mess up these grind marks and do a full single bevel grind to get it down to a 0 grind where it goes all the way to the edge. So We're going to be sending this one off as a pass around, and the first person we're sending this to is an experienced sharpener. So he's going to determine, you know, how he wants to handle it, but I'm pretty sure he's just going to grind this blade row down right to the very edge for a 0 grind. But you can see the grinder's marks in there. I kind of want to just preserve that. Again, if that's determined that that's the best way to go, then Mark may finish sharpening these right out of the box, and you won't have them this way. This has a small secondary bevel on the edge, which you can see reflecting, that I put on there just to get to the very edge after I cleaned it up a little bit. And then when you sharpen the backside of these, you're not going to want to lay it flat on the stone like a traditional deba or yanagiba, because you'll scratch the you-know-what out of it. It does have a very slight concave, but it's not enough to do that. So you'll want to raise the spine off the sharpening stone ever so slightly when you take the burr off the backside after you've sharpened the front side. You do need to raise that just a little bit off the stone so you don't scuff up the back, and then try to keep that back as pristine as possible. And you can see I've got a very small micro bevel on the back just from deburring. And baby, did this thing get sharp when I finished it off. It is sharp, sharp, sharp. It's going to steer a little bit through taller ingredients, harder ingredients, whether you're righty or lefty. For shorter stuff, food release is going to be great because it's just going to pop off the right side of that blade because of that single bevel. And the left side of the blade, just me experimenting a little bit. Again, I'm a lefty, but experimenting a little bit. I didn't get too much sticking on the backside, so that slight concave really does a nice job of helping food not get suction of that too bad. So this is going to be a different experience for you, but if you're up for it, this is a very unique knife. The fit and finish, actually, it's pretty good. There's a little bit of roughness on the choil neck area, just a slight bit on the corners of the spine. And that's just this maker, so it's going to be slightly rustic, but he puts a premium on how he treats these knives, how he treats them, how he grinds them, his geometry. This is just really, really cool. It's a piece of traditional history here. It's just an awesome knife. So let me put it on the cutting board for you. Like I said, this is going to get so sharp being a single bevel. It's just going to be a scalpel. And here's the profile. Again, I didn't really touch the profile other than just to clean up a couple little slight hiccupy bumps in the back half of the blade. Really nothing that I did affected the actual curve. So this is what the profile looks like. It definitely doesn't have a big flat spot to it, but it's a nice profile on the board. So these are just really cool. I think Mark sold out of the first batch of these. There are Nakitis available, but when he gets more of these in, which I think he will, these are really cool if you want to try a single bevel. If you're a lefty, I don't know, maybe we can get together and have Mark see if he'll make some left-handed ones. I don't know if he would even want to do that, but anyway, just a great story, a great knife, and these are really cool. So this one's going on a pass around. Check the Chef Knives to Go forums.com for a pass around thread and the pass arounds subforum, and you can keep track of what people think of this thing. So again, Chef Knives to Go forums, plural.com. Pop into the pass around